story.
That's enough.
Sometimes 44 school through placements intention, not because 44 did anything wrong.
Yeah, like we just got a student on Monday, you know, but it's just, we're constantly getting students, so. The only thing that is helping us is because we are a SIG school, so we still have 2 additional years to receive that money. But the thing is, when you're a SIG school, you don't get any of the additional supports that the district gives to other schools. So that's kind of.
I'm sorry, what's a SIG school?
Oh, it's a school improvement grant.
Okay.
So right now, where we are is we submitted our community engagement, the recommendations. They're submitted to the superintendent, and so they have to review it. And so what I handed each of you is we sent a revised version of our SIG, that school improvement grant. And we submitted all of the recommendations under each of the goals. So there's a goal 1, 2, 3, and then we added a goal 4 for some of the areas that did not, that were kind of outliers. So just wanted to give you just a minute to take a look and see where it is, and then you can ask questions or, you know, anything of that matter.
We also updated some of the verbiage, based on the recommendations we got last time around our community partners and
From staff. From all the recommendations.
community partners and something else.
Can we get a copy of what was submitted? Did we get that?
No, I can send it to you. I can send it in email too.
Yeah. Please, thanks.
This is what was submitted, as far as the CET goes.
The CET recommendations.
Right, that was added to our SIG, right?
Yeah, but there's that other form. Remember that other form? Are you talking about that other form, Mary?
The stuff we went over at the last meeting,
Yeah.
that was, so like what was there was like rewritten into recommendations and forwarded to the district?
Yeah, what we had the last time, all we did was just take that and put it into the SIG form.
Because some of it was undecided before that meeting. You know, some of it had like recommendations that went in opposing directions, so it had to be collated based on that last meeting into recommendations, because it was like notes about possible recommendations. But there were like there were things that possibly conflicted with each other within the document that we went over last meeting, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You can just take a look at this and see if it reads, if some of that reads right.
But if we could, I think we should have a copy of what was submitted as this body's recommendations to the district. We should have that.
I can send it to you, it was like 15 pages and
Yeah, but that's saying that this committee recommended those things, so this committee should have that.
I thought everything that was recommended is in this document.
It is, but she wants to see both of them.
Yeah, if something was, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Like if something was submitted to an office in the district and it was claimed to be, and didn't mean anything bad by saying claiming, but I mean, it's representing this body's work. All the members of this body should certainly have that documentation. Or
That was
else,
submitted.
yeah,
This is documentation that was
So
submitted.
they don't have it, except for what I'm handing to them. They just want a copy of it, so I'm gonna send it to them.
I thought this is what we submitted. This is not the document that we submitted. You see what I'm saying?
It is, but Mary's saying that they didn't get a copy. No, we submitted this and there was another form that was the
Oh.
CET, and they don't have a copy of that.
Gotcha.
Because these are not the recommendations that came from the committee. This is like the next document.
No, these are the
No,
recommendations
these
that
are
came.
recommendations.
The bullets are.
Right, but they're incorporated.
Incorporated.
I guess we're not following.
What do you mean?
Am I making sense?
No,
So there were recommendations that were submitted on behalf of the CET, and then the process says that either those recommendations are incorporated into the school's plan, and the SIG is the framework for this school's plan. A revised SIG is the framework for this school's plan.
Right.
So the CET recommendations were incorporated into the plan. But it's not, the CET recommendations don't make up the entirety of the plan, like the goals in this format. And there should be other things in the school's plan beyond the CET's recommendations. Like they're part of a bigger process. And I'm just saying I'd like to see the actual raw CET recommendations that were submitted as part of our plan.
So we took everything that we discussed on that CET plan and aligned it under each of these goals based on what was recommended.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what else you're asking then.
I just want to see the CET recommendations that were forwarded to the district.
That's this. Unless there was another sheet or something.
So are you, am I just understanding, is it, you want what the New York State recommended, or the district recommended, and then the meeting that we had, and we had our own recommendations, you want to see them separate?
Yeah, I want to see the CET's recommendations.
The CET
Because
recommendations?
it's one contribution to the bigger process.
Right, which was our first meeting, which we had all those notes that we had the overhead. We looked at the overhead.
Right, but then the school, like this body advises you all, and you as the administration decide whether to accept, and it sounds like from what you're saying and the confusion that seems to be here, that you accepted them as a whole, without any revisions, like you just took everything from the CET and you're advancing it, as opposed to like looking at the CET recommendations and then deciding like, yes, we want these, no, we don't want those, and this is our
So
school's
you want the
plan.
document that we went over
The last meeting.
The last meeting.
At the last
Were you here at the last meeting?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that document that said we're either gonna implement or implement with modification.
Right, so that meeting, my understanding was that was to kind of go over and decide what were out of that universe of things that were recommended at the hearing and that people had put in, that meeting would decide what would be the official recommendations from this body to move forward and put into the bigger process.
Into
The school
SIG.
improvement framework,
Into
the school
SIG,
improvement,
right.
right, yes.
So, I don't know if you have that. We didn't submit that. We didn't have to submit that.
Yes, we did.
Oh, so we submitted that. That's
Yeah, I thought that what goes in,
Gotcha.
I thought that what
That's
goes in,
Okay, yeah.
into the process has to include everything that it got thrown out at the original meeting,
Right,
and with comments of, incorporate
Right,
or
we have that.
with modification or
Right.
not.
I'm getting ready to send it to him,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Like, okay, what am I missing here?
That's not one of the
It's not in the
goals,
goal.
but it's infused in as one of the objectives. Should be.
I would just, my input would be that it warranted being a goal. It's not in the objectives either, maybe in a bullet point under an objective, but it's not in any of the objectives.
Well, what we were trying to do is because the objectives were part of what we originally had for the original SIG grant. And so we were putting the bullets, all the recommendations underneath the existing objectives and where they might fit.
So my position would be that we made it into receivership through arbitrary capricious means, which I disagree with. But if we're gonna take on this process and we're gonna consider improvement strategies, that should be a goal, and if not a goal, at least a primary objective. And I mean, the whole point is that you have to make changes and recommendations that change from what we were doing to new approaches. That's the premise of the whole process.
So one of the things in objective one under the first bullet around professional development for all staff, it says about the culturally relevant instructional practices, curriculum and material, literacy, best practices, and differentiation to meet the needs of all students. I think we put that under there intentionally because we want to first prepare staff about cultural relevancy and then move forward as a process.
I still think it should be a more primary, that's just my offering.
What do you mean more primary?
It should be
As an objective?
a higher order objective or goal.
So one thing that Brendan let us know is that for our SIG, we can't change the wording of our SIG, like to be trying to, so when we told him that we had added a goal, he told us, no, you can't do that.
Okay.
Because the SIG is for those however many years that we said we was gonna do this SIG for. But what we can do is say under those objectives, that's why we put our CET recommendations under each one of those objectives. So that we can say it's there, and this is what we plan on doing, but we didn't change or go in and reword wording of the goals that we've established and said we're gonna be doing for ourselves.
It makes more sense.
Okay.
But we are, like, I don't want you to think that we're not committed, because we've already met with Jason Willis. We've already, we have a team of teachers together already where we're going to be looking at, like the curriculum that we're working with, but then we are gonna have a PD where Jason is gonna be coming in and well, Jeff Michaels is coming too, but that's dealing more with math, but we wanna start, working with teachers just on culturally relevant.
Is that connecting with the teacher center? With the Rochester Teacher Center? Because that's where the focus on elementary work really has been for many years. You know this.
He did mention that he has been in touch with Susan Goodwin. and
I hope
things.
it's more than in touch, that it's
I'm not
integrated.
sure exactly what he's gonna be presenting yet until we meet with them further. But our sole purpose right now is to first give our teachers an understanding of what does it mean to be culturally relevant before we even dive into curriculum.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying the Teacher Center has such, orders of magnitude difference in scholarship in that work compared to Jason. I'm just sorry, but that's the reality and the truth, and it's a resource that's available to you and to us. I'll leave it at that.
That's fine, like, that, then that's understandable, but I think before we can even send them to the teacher center and they go diving into whatever resources that they have to provide over there, I truly believe that they need a understanding in a smaller setting to first understand cultural relevancy. Because I don't think a lot of them understand the true meaning behind it and the importance of it when it's working with children of color. So it's hard to start.
I'm just saying where the grounding for that could be,
Or we wanted to utilize our resources, he's director of,
Yep.
African Act, so let's start.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Well, I'm sorry, what was his name again?
Jason Willis, Dr. Jason Willis.
Dr. Jason Willis.
That was the job that came in the other day.
Mhm. And then I think it's mentioned again in objective 1.6, where we're just reiterating providing that professional development for all staff. And the reason why we put all staff is because we just don't want it to be centered on, it's the teacher's responsibility for knowing these things. It was important to us, or when we start going through those recommendations, and critical that all staff were well-read on understanding cultural relevancy, and not just about instruction, but also with the curriculum and materials and things that we're going to be using. And then the review of the text materials. So that's one of the things that we touched on this year when working with the modules. And a lot of the teachers get a little frustrated with the texts that are selected and chosen for the modules that's being taught. And so we said that this team of teachers who we're working with to try to prepare for the coming school year, that we'll be reviewing various texts. And we've already placed a large order, thanks to Carmen helping us, with several culturally relevant texts that we're going to plan on using next year at various grade levels.
Any of the lessons from the K-2 curriculum? Have you ordered any of those?
No, from the teacher center, no. But we haven't, not finished ordering, so you gotta give us a minute to cipher through different things. It's a process. Everything is.
That's my favorite thing, everything is a process.
I think the biggest thing that, Mary, and I think that I don't want you to feel as if we're resistance against is the fact that we are committed to being an EL school, so we're using their curriculum. And so what we're trying to do is figure out and really want to use the time and our resources that we have to use the curriculum that we have, but weave culturally relevant texts, because we know that we will go to Susan Goodwin and talk with her and try for like the primary grades and stuff. But as far as, like, I know you were saying the lessons, I think we have to take a look at it and kind of see where, can this be a part during their social studies time? It's just, I think right now we're just we don't want to take on too much, because I think this year we did take on a lot with the primary did the new skills block, and then they also did the modules, and the upper grades did the all block. So, but I don't want you to think we're opposed, by no means, definitely not.
Do we want to print out that other one for those young people who don't have their computers?
The one that's the CET recommendation. Everybody have a computer.
Does anybody need hard copy at this moment?
No. No, it's okay.
Can you just send it to us in an email?
I
Yes,
already
she
did.
did.
Right.
So what does this mean, Travis? It says,
Which one?
administration can ensure teachers remain in school for a year, but you can stop them from being able to transfer out.
Which one? Where you
The
at?
very last, the very last staff. Oh, the staff turnover rule?
Yeah.
Yes, because of receivership, we can,
Older teacher for 1 year?
yeah, for 1 year. It's like, so that EWA, so if a teacher signs it, it's only good for 1 year, but then they have to sign it again for the following year. It doesn't just keep going, yeah.
Right.
So,
But can you, if they are not working out, can you let them go?
After 1 year, yeah.
Do people need more time to read, or is there any questions or anything?
My question is just regarding the demonstrable indicators. On Wednesday, when you meet to get information about that, will you be able to share that with the staff?
7, or, because then if you have 5, then each one is worth 10 points, right? But what if you had more? Because I think this is what they were saying, they learned from the first cohort, that one of the schools picked, I think in level 2, they picked like 10 or something, and that didn't work out in their favor. So, I think you need to pick SMART, like something that you can achieve,
And not so many, are they saying? So if they pick 10 different things that they're gonna focus on, they're gonna be scored on each of those items?
Right. But the more, the less points you have for each.
So it
Correct.
depends on what the school can move in most likely.
Correct.
So you sit there and you predict with them. That's why it does make sense to me for you all to sit down with them and, because you know your data. We don't know your like the ins and outs of that.
So what they were saying a lot with the level 1s is gonna be, like ELA, math, science, chronic absenteeism, and then they were even saying our school climate, so like the suspensions and probably English language learners. Something that we might get something on one of those indicators, if not all of those.
On level 1, and then on level 2,
Level 2,
it's
I
like
don't
kind of
know.
all over the place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it could be something like
Absenteeism.
teacher
Or
absenteeism.
like absenteeism of Latino students, or
Yeah.
like
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 subgroups
specific
or-
subgroups and things. So.
But it can even be, I think, like staff absenteeism,
Mhm.
something. I think that's what makes me nervous, is because like you haven't seen it. It's like, well, what is it,
And do you know who your staff are for next year? Are we there yet? We're not there yet, right?
Say,
You don't have any idea about your staff for next year?
yeah, we got numbers.
Oh, but I mean, who,
Who?
like,
No.
has transferred yet? It doesn't happen until later.
Yeah, later.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we fill our staff with the people who we want or don't want,
Mhm.
and then be able to get other people to fill those
Mhm.
empty spots, then we don't have to be a part of the transfer.
Mhm.
And we like the fact that we are exempt, where people just can't transfer in,
That's good.
yeah.
You know what?
Exempt from transfer, that they just can't.
Is that a permanent feature of the school?
No, it's just for receivership.
Receivership.
So, I have to ask this, so you got that kind of power, do you have the power, to move somebody you wanna move even if they don't wanna move?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like you can move them out?
Yes, that's good, that's good. Let's hold it on.
Number one.
Mr. Adams.
So I guess my question is, and it's, as a committee, I think we have to really decide, one, how we're going to move the curriculum and instruction here. I think it is important that we do know what the indicators are, what they're looking for, but it's really what's going on in those classrooms,
Mhm. That's gonna make a lot of difference. Curriculum don't close gaps, instruction closes gaps.
And so as a committee, how are we going to put some systems in place to make sure we're doing just that?
Do you have a sense that there are teachers who need help, need coaching? Can you acquire more coaches? I mean,
Well,
you
that's
still
the-
have to work with what you have, you just have to do more.
Well, they're reducing, the budget is
Yeah,
not looking as,
stone soup.
yeah. So, right now, we are, we're gonna have to do more with less. So,
How is that even realistic?
Right.
That's what they do.
and so this is the
What's the
thing
point?
that Deb and I are talking about because right now, they've already cut all the cases, which are the coordinating administrators for special ed. And so when you're in like well, it doesn't matter whether you're in a big school or a small school, but usually in a small school, it's like you already only have a portion of a person. So now you've cut them, so like who's gonna do this? So, it's only Deb and I are the administrators, so which one of us is going to pick up that responsibility?
But for this year, it's being centralized, right?
Well, we
Right
have,
now.
right now, but,
And for next, until there's capacity, right? I mean, we need to understand that there's a disconnect between what is being described, which sounds somewhat reasonable, versus reality.
well,
So-
there is some portion of that's supposed to be centralized, but there are some things, like annual reviews, is it the annuals, or
Back on
that
school.
still has to happen at the school.
But like over a 3 to 5 year period, right?
No, next year,
Next year,
In the fall?
in the
yes.
fall.
That's not what's being described, so there's a disconnect.
Unless they're putting a new plan in place and they hasn't been communicated.
That would be shocking around here, wouldn't it?
And that's a lot of our concerns with, we're in receivership. You're saying we're not in the classroom enough to provide feedback, but then, you're pulling somebody who has this expertise in special ed that we've been deemed for, in the media and all these different reports. So it's just really concerning, but I don't want it to be, it's not gonna stop us from what we have to do. We just have to think about different systems and how do we get around that. So those are some of the things that keep me up all night. Like who do you delegate,
For the instructional support, what about university resources? I mean, the original SIG had an emphasis on higher education, right? Like higher education being college ready, and didn't that imply like partnerships with colleges and universities? So,
Our state did?
what's
It was
that?
kind of, yeah, it was like being college ready, yeah.
Oh,
But it had like partnerships with colleges as part of the plan, I think, from what I had looked at before. But like, is there, like St. John Fisher students used to come in? They don't come anymore, right?
Not since we moved over here, it's kind of hard for them to get over here.
So I wonder, is there resources for coaching that way, like where where it's not a burden, but where you have maybe faculty who you have relationships with who can help with coaching? Is that just a pipe dream? I mean, is there anything? that you
Well,
could-
that's one of the things that we're working on. So we do have, we call it Cooper Council, and so we're working on staff who feel that they have expertise in like a particular area and feel confident enough to, share that with other staff, but we're like right at the beginning stages with that, and so we're working with that group, on itself, so where they can give feedback to their colleagues, because they're not even at a point where they're able to go and do observations in their classrooms to give feedback. So we're kind of starting small before we open it up to the entire school.
Like, what if you had a faculty member at one of the universities who you know and trust and have a relationship with, who could like spearhead developing
gotcha.
that process that you just described, like the council process, and like helping define the protocols and support the staff and support the debriefs and whatever is entailed, but you could delegate that to them instead of you all having to focus in. I mean, you would still be driving it, of course, but you know what I mean? Like, are there free resources we could tap in the university world that would be more help than hindrance? Because I know sometimes you get like student teachers in and then it's like, oh my God, that's actually causing harm, not help.
No, I think that would be, I just don't know any of the resources.
No? Okay. I wasn't sure, maybe through Fisher.
Well, I mean, what we use, and it's not really with the staff, but I mean, Lee's got a group, but they come in with the students, but not with the staff per se.
Yeah, I'm thinking more someone to help your instructional, like someone, like a faculty expertise.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I like it, but no.
Well, if universities are willing to send you student interns, would they consider sending their experienced teachers to be intern, if you will, coaches? So you could get more coaching. Then don't settle for sophomores, go for professors.
That's a whole model that was being pushed. Like when I first came on the board, like 7 years ago, whatever, we were really working on trying to push that. So like, don't just send us the students who we have to then kind of, I mean, no offense to young teachers, but you know, sometimes do damage control or be like really, it's like a taxing on the school. But bring both. Bring your students. Yes, we welcome them. We want them to learn in our environment so they can teach here. And we want your resources too. So it's not just so it's more reciprocal.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, and we were a part, if we're talking about the same thing, when we had Fisher. Fisher.
And with Alison? With Alison?
Yes. But I didn't see where Alison was more or less coaching like our teachers.
Right.
You know?
It never happened. It
Yeah.
never happened. It was something that like there was like a community person, I can't even remember her name, who was like always in my ear about it. And it was a really good thing, and I tried to push it.
When we came in, it was more or less, this was one of our placements. I actually had a placement here at School 10 back in 2011. I guess I can literally remember Cam being like, this is School 14, this is School 10, and blah, 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 and talking all about it. But we were being coached by our professor, Wendy Gladstone Brown, to do morning meetings and how to incorporate it in our own classroom. And we had to work with the teachers within like the school to learn how to best, support them. And we could, go to the teacher and say, well, this is what we saw, type of thing. But it was for a classroom management class. It was for like an actual class. But that was forever ago. No, so.
Yeah, I like that model.
I mean,
Just haven't seen it in practice.
And you can't wait on central office to implement it. Like, it would be something that
We would have to see.
if you wanted to do the outreach, and if you knew, we know Alison very well. Ricardo and I know Alison really well.
And I could talk
But
to
she
Jen
wouldn't be the
Ferretti.
one. She coordinates the student teachers. It would be some other connected level.
So Jen Ferretti is, she's not the same as what Alison does. Jen Ferretti is like the director of like the education program at the university, and I'm actually really good friends with her. So I could talk to her and see if she has any ideas. Or
And Jeff, what's his name? He's the chair right now. Yeah, we got connections at Fisher. Jeff. He's got red hair, glasses. I believe him.
Alison hasn't sent me any student teachers in a long time. Well, it was a new process. Had to go through downtown. She used to just, they used to send them to the schools, but I'm digressing, sorry.
Jennifer Dorr with, what school is she with?
Geneseo?
Geneseo.
She's
Right to
Geneseo's got some good people too, that are, like with the School 19 stuff, really good leaders there.
I'm wondering, so my husband also works for the U of R, so I'm wondering if like there's any, I know that we have a couple people come in, but I'm wondering if there's anybody he knows at U of R that might be able to send.
Well, we got this set up, we can talk about some contact names that set up meetings.
So you-
If there's,
I'm really fighting this. So you're out here just twisting in the wind. You gotta fix all of this yourself. There's nobody from the district whose job it would be to find extra teacher coaches at the colleges and universities, among the retired teachers, whatever. You just, they slap you on the wrist and they tell you you gotta fix yourself, and then they all go back to whatever it is they normally do.
That's pretty much it.
Got it.
Well, all right.
With the exceptions, it's like, it's not, there's no systemic order that you would expect. That's been my experience. So you'll find fantastic people who do good things, but it's like they have to go to extreme lengths to accomplish it rather than being facilitated by the system. And so these are the kinds of things that need to be changed. And many of us are hopeful and keep plodding away and keep advocating and keep expressing our expectations, because there's no reason not to expect it. But that is unfortunately the case. And there's a chief involved, no, I'll stop right there, in receivership schools who does not have a track record of extreme efficiency.
So there's no official vested interest at the district level for you people to pull yourself out of trouble and get okay again? I mean, whatever happens doesn't affect anything down on Broad Street? They'll just still go on business as usual? And, gee, that was too bad about number 10 school?
And number 39, and number 1, and all the other status codes.
Well, it's a third of them, right, that are in the receivership right now.
There's a lot of us that are, you see,
And more to come,
Yeah.
more to come, the way they set it up that way.
So the ones that have been successful are the ones that have had like really strong like collective efforts to rally around them. And like School 9's experience, I think they had a pretty strong team, and they had a lot of university support. They had Nazareth, they had, did they have other schools? I don't know.
And so, at the board meeting, this last board meeting, there was 34, they had been a receivership or something, and they was getting the support, and now that they have showed improvement, the support is stopping, and they like, you're gonna send us right back to where we came from. It's a ridiculous, revolving thing. We gotta put a stop to it, we just gotta quit accepting it. I mean,
It's not like a flat tire.
I don't know. But in the meantime, he still got a school here to run and students to teach. But people like me gotta, and Sarah, we gotta do what we gotta do. I'm expecting a lot out you, young lady. Seriously. You gotta do something.
But the bottom line is it's far too hit or miss.
Yeah, and now you gotta leave early?
I got that.
I'm kidding.
who would have ever thought
Sarah.
you would have
Yes.
expected?
I know, and it sounded great, selected to do the chants, the step
What? You didn't speak until like 6.
I appreciate you all.
All up there, that little monster boots. So, but I do think.
I don't mean to be so negative, it's just I'm discovering this.
No, it's disheartening because it is like the first cohort, all of them, except for a couple, I think, got out of receivership. I mean, they still are on like that watch list, and they're losing their supports. And then there were like 5 or 6 of them, right? And then so now there's 10, 12 of us that are in receivership now. We didn't have as much resources behind us, which is kind of scary, but then it's kind of good in a way because they had so much support that when it's getting ripped from them, it's like, was it sustainable?
Yeah.
You know, how do you function?
Yeah.
So like right now, how do we function? But the other thing is the district is also worried about, so there's gonna probably be a cohort 3. So they've got schools now, I think they're learning from this process, which we were at last year, because if somebody was talking to us and working with us and going through the data the way they're working with us now, we could have probably wouldn't have even gotten on this receivership list. So it's just, and I hope that they work with them so that they don't have to go on these lists.
But the support that you need to get out of this predicament is the same kind of support you're gonna need going forward to keep from coming back in this predicament. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean,
It is frustrating. I don't have the answer. I just know that we and I'm just talking about school 10, we really have to work on the instruction that's being delivered here.
but you don't have any control over that. You get what you get.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got control over that, but I have to, that's what I'm saying, like, I have to sit down with Deb and we really gotta think about systems and process. Like, we can't allow, if a parent comes in upset, to pull us away. So like, we're supposed to be in a classroom.
Oh, right, yeah.
But those 9 times, it's been a culture where, if somebody comes in irate, they get first priority. So.
Squeaky wheel.
So we have to, but our thing is, I don't want to be somebody irate, Carmen to be dealing with that.
I think the clientele, on the older side, I think the clientele has changed. And when I say clientele, I mean the customer. The customer's needs have changed. So therefore, that makes you have to change the way that you deal with them. The ideal way to deal with them is, okay, I'll call you later, we'll discuss it later. No, they want it now. You're dealing with very high rates of
So you're referring more to parents than
instability.
the children. You're referring to the parents.
The parents first, but then the administration and teachers are dealing with a high pace of emotional instability in children. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So therefore, the old way of being able to address these things isn't working. So they have to, and when I say they, I mean administrators teach a new way of communicating. The district is on top of them to say, well, you have to do this and this and this. But again, the clientele has changed, and I think that's a part that isn't maybe wholly addressed. I think they're working on it and tipping the iceberg, or chipping at that iceberg, but that's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge when you're dealing with children that they're not gonna come just to the classroom. And I know I sit in the office, so I may be out of line, but they're not gonna just come and sit in the classroom and be eager to learn. Maybe 50% of them are, but you have another 50% who have real emotional, social issues that have to be dealt
For
with.
what comfort it might offer you, I think the same situation in the suburbs. I think, educators, public educators are finding the same thing in Pittsburgh, parents in Pennsylvania.
I'm sure.
You got people who think that their pain should go away now, whatever it is that's bothering them. And nobody's willing to wait in line anymore.
So it's a different world out there, and it's unfair to say that administrators or teachers aren't doing enough. They're doing more than
Oh, it's
what
totally
they're able
unfair,
to
yeah.
do.
And just, my initial question was, you get an awful lot of six-figure salaries on Broad Street.
Let's bring them in.
What's their interest in fixing this? Do they have any vested interest in getting schools out of receivership, and more to the point, preventing schools from falling into
I think they
receivership?
do, but like Deb and I have this conversation all the time. I think sometimes when you get down to central office, you kind of forget like what it's like to be, and I don't want to say the trenches because I love being in the school, like as much as a kid can make you angry, they turn around in a second to fill you up with so much joy. But I think some of the things that they forget is that you go through like 15 different emotions in like, is it 15 minutes? Or an hour, like literally, and it's like, you have to think about yourself as a person, like, sometimes it takes me a minute to get myself together just to interact with like staff or even students. So, and so when they say, I need you, we're going in lockdown, or something like that, I'm like, I know, and like, hold on, man, I'm like, so it's just like, you always have to be ready for something, or, let's go in this classroom and, okay, you gotta get feedback. Oh, while we're in that classroom, then, somebody's parent could have died, or the kid, CPS is coming and they're, either taking them away, and then,
Sure.
do I really know the policy for,
Well, you mentioned restorative practices and restorative justice, or I guess just restorative practices in here a number of times. That's an expensive way to solve the problem. And indeed, it solves the problem. It's better than heavy-handed discipline, certainly. It's just that restorative practices takes time and effort. A lot more than just getting out your fraternity paddle and whacking a kid, sending them to detention. I mean,
It does take a lot of time, because it's so easy to be like, no, I'm giving you 2 days.
Yeah.
You go in ISS if your parents don't come, and then you don't deal with it. But when you do restorative, I'm like, oh my God, I've been with this kid for like an hour.
Right.
It takes a lot of time, and I'm like,
the beauty of restorative practices is you're treating the disease instead of the symptom.
right.
And if you can treat the disease, the symptom won't show up again.
You're teaching them how to really handle their emotions.
Exactly.
And
Because they're coming-
understand those emotions.
They're coming from an environment where restorative practices is hard as fuck.
So what I've heard is that instruction closes the gap.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can kind of up supervising instruction, but you won't be able to do so much other stuff that really goes on in the building. Dealing with the parents, now they want you to be the assistant on special education, whatever you call the case.
Yeah.
So all these things are gonna pull you away from doing everything except for overseeing instruction in the classroom. And you have to still, you can never disregard all that stuff. I've seen that one little girl, man, she really was cutting up. Her mother couldn't even handle her. Her mother couldn't even handle her. It was the case person came in, Abby came in and got her settled down. But the time, it was like 2 hours with her that morning. It was 2 hours. So, now you say that's another 2 hours that the principals are, that's not the solution. We're never gonna be closing the gap. There's too much other
Other
stuff
stuff.
that you can't disregard. You can't disregard the parent coming in here, because we don't know
Disrupting
when they gonna come in here acting a real fool. You know, and some of these, we can't just, we try to be restorative, we can't just be putting the kids out.
Yeah.
This, final straw, you're gone. You can't do that either. So it's really, this ain't designed to be cutting resources.
Right.
I don't know. I know I'm gonna be advocating for more resources for this whole district. I mean, they got all these philanthropists, community foundation, they got billions. I mean billions. They really got billions. I'm not just making a fake number up. Quit penny pinching us. We need some money. Really, maybe the mayor, somebody can give them a tax cut, but we need some money. We need resources, man. We can't, this budget cutting stuff, that's not what we need.
Or maybe not a budget cut at the school level.
They're sitting there, I told them that at the board meeting Thursday, I said, man, y'all sitting up here theorizing stuff, you have no idea what's going on in the building. You have no idea, you're out of touch.
Well, the other thing, we were like, when you start cutting staff, I said, safety and security, you're cutting the people who can help us with these, you know, the arrival, dismissal, you know, like we really get worried when we came here. There's so many entrances and exits and cubby holes.
You know what
We were very
got a lot for
fortunate.
this year?
Our friend decided to put himself in his locker earlier today, and I was like, and I was just standing by my door, and I'm like, okay, so at least you're safe.
And you put yourself in.
And you put yourself in, I didn't do anything to you.
But yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But I think, what I can say is I feel like a lot of the recommendations that the CET team brought were valid. You know, it went aligned with the goals that we had. I know Ms. Adams is concerned about culturally relevant, but we're really serious about making that a part of our curriculum, that our existing curriculum, and making sure that it's infused correctly. I don't know if maybe just reaching out with Susan Goodwin to talk with her about some of the resources that she has with the text or something like that. You think that might?
So, I think you need to tell her and form your own opinion. That's my right, but that don't make my opinion be, seriously. That's
Don't be all.
the curriculum, yeah. Especially when you said that about the, gap. What closes the gap?
Right, curriculum
That's,
doesn't
the gap is what needs to be closed.
Exactly. So I don't
Because right now, I feel like I'm naked when they being in receivership. It's like you're naked. I'm so vulnerable. Need to get out of this receivership, and then I can breathe. Right now, we need to close that gap. That's unfortunately, I would love to try to do it all. I would love that would be the ideal situation. But we need to close that gap.
Yeah. So once we hear about our demonstrables,
Yes, so our next meeting, we'll talk about the demonstrables and how we're gonna move that agenda. Our next meeting is it already on the calendar?
I believe it is.
May 13th.
May 13th? Beautiful.
Would we already be receiving our EWAs before them? Like the teachers and,
Yeah. So we'll know what staff and what that also.
is that supposed to be like happening? I know you guys had to submit that.
People will know by May
My birthday.
8th. Yep.
I found a wig too.
So what? A wedding.
Where?
We're pretty innocent.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
What party city?
Yeah.
What's the wait for?
Yeah,
What's the wait for?
Yeah, what's it look for?
We'll be going to Backwoods having a 50th birthday party. It'll be Harmonics.
Oh!
Break out with my sister. Yo, first time I rock the ball heads back.
Right.
So I ain't rocking. Give me some waves. I got it. Yeah. My wife has got this Hawaii type fur stuff to wrap around.
That's 1920s right there.
Yeah.
So anybody have anything else they want to say before we wrap this meeting up?
Talking about security, you mentioned that the back door was wide open when I came in. There of course is no buzzer to ring where I usually come in on the side there, but I went around back. It's wide open. There's the elevator, and then took the stair door, and not a soul to have to answer to.
Yeah, it must have been James. He leaves it open when he does the trash.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I've come out before and I'm like, why is this door open like this? And then I see him coming around with it. I'm like, you can shut it.
Right.
Let a skunk run in here.
Mm-hmm.
Or something. Okay.
So,
well, it's a good thing it was open because I made it in, but I might still be out there pounding on the door.